Good. So I'm probably going to talk very quickly because I'm very passionate about this. I'm a therapist in the psychological wellbeing service, and we work across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. What I'm going to do today is just talk a little bit about some of the sort of mental and emotional psychological symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, just so you've kind of got that awareness of actually is there something hormonal going on for me, and talk a little bit about wider context of, you know, this stage of life, everything else that might be going on and how that can impact on how we're feeling, and a little bit about how we can sort of look after ourselves. And I could talk about that for days, so it's going to be, as I say, I'll be talking quickly. So whether you might recognise some of these symptoms, I don't know, but there's, you know, obviously there can be lots and lots of different symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. These are some of the more emotional, psychological symptoms. And what we've been trying to do a little bit of awareness raising in the service I work in, just so that people think, well, actually, is it, you know, the sort of depression and low mood that you might experience in menopause is a different thing to sort of clinical depression, because it's, you know, you've got hundreds of estrogen receptors in your brain. So, you know, sometimes people might go to the GP and be offered antidepressants when there's something else going on that's to do with this stage of life. So I suppose just really being aware of that, but there's lots of, you know, different things that can be going on there, you know, perhaps feeling irritable and angry, having crying spells, the tiredness and lack of energy. So, you know, a lot of this is down to those lovely hormones that we have to deal with. And you'll probably be really familiar with this just on a monthly basis as well, you know, over your life course. And so just to sort of be aware of those really. And it is, you know, the sort of the low mood triggered by hormones is a different thing to sort of clinical depression. So just to sort of bear that in mind, I think it's really important just to acknowledge the context that, you know, everyone's living in. It's a time of life that can have a lot of stress in it anyway. It's really busy. You know, you might have family, you might have children, you might also have older relatives that you're looking after. You know, there might be a lot going on sort of job-wise. Body is changing. That can have an impact on how we feel mentally, emotionally. You know, just that this sort of stage of life and things changing and how you relate to yourself really, what it's like to be feeling different and, you know, going through this different stage of life is all, you know, quite important stuff. Not to mention what society kind of thinks women should be doing and thinking and being at this age. You know, there's a lot of that stuff. We're not in a vacuum, basically. The highest rate of divorce for women is between 45 and 49, so that's worth kind of bearing in mind as well. So, and just, you know, the crazy world we live in at the moment, I think let's acknowledge that that can have quite an impact on how we feel emotionally, mentally, well, you know, how well we're sleeping, all that sort of stuff. So just, you know, just sort of not having to see yourself as this sort of individual, you know, without all these other things impacting on you as well, let alone the hormones. So I promise it's not all going to be doom and gloom. So that's just a little bit about sort of that wider context. I guess the thing to say about hormones, and I know you probably have had some discussions around HRT and things today and got some information about that. We have estrogen receptors everywhere in our body. So, you know, before I sort of learned more about this, and this was, you know, through my own experiences, sort of experiencing perimenopause symptoms and just not feeling quite right, you know, just not feeling quite like myself and not quite knowing what was going on and starting to sort of learn a bit more. So, you know, all of these symptoms that we have that can be emotional and psychological, it is because the hormone levels are fluctuating. There's a lot sort of going on in your brain. So estrogen is everywhere and is used for lots and lots of different things. So obviously HRT is something that can help with anxiety, with the low mood, with that sort of stuff. On a more sort of, you know, practical, what can I do to help myself, to sort of look after myself? Some of this is going to sound a bit, oh, okay, sleep, but sleep is so, so important. You know, it helps our bodies rest, recover, repair. So do have a look at how your sleep is. I know, again, that can be a tricky symptom in perimenopause and menopause, but aiming for 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night, you know, having a fairly consistent routine if you can. Blue light, so switch the phones off 2 hours before you go to bed. No doom scrolling, you know, geez. Oh. So that's not great for getting to bed, is it? And sort of, you know, looking at the news and that kind of stuff. So just, that's all quite important. And just keeping your bedroom cool and dark and free from sort of unhelpful distractions. Having a look at things like apps like Calm or Headspace if you struggle with getting off to sleep. There's some really nice things just to help with relaxation, things like sleep stories. So anything that's just going to help you kind of help the shoulders come down a bit from around the ears and just sort of be ready to be getting some sleep. I'm not going to try and sort of repeat things that have already been said. I know there's people here who are fantastic on the nutrition side of things, but there are more and more studies and information coming out about, you know, the impact of what we eat on how we feel. So, you know, we're not just sort of bodies carrying our thoughts around. This is all, you know, what we do, how we sleep, how we eat, all has an impact on our emotional health, our mental health. So, you know, around this stage of life, so foods rich in calcium, vitamin D for your bones, really important. Anything that's sort of good for the gut, and this is not an area of expertise for me, and there's lots of information out there that you can find, but just to kind of have that holistic way of thinking about your mental health, your emotional health, really. So having a look at that and sort of, you know, low glycemic index carbohydrates as well. Anything with the omega-3s in is really good for our brain health as well. So, you know, just trying to see your mental and your emotional well-being as all of these things play into that and have an impact. Okay. Really making sure you have time for things that are just for you, not with your mum hat on or your work hat or your daughter hat, whatever, you as an individual. You know, and that's different for everyone, isn't it? That the thing that gives you a bit of joy, helps you relax, helps you feel more like yourself. You will know what those things are, so I don't want to kind of give you a big list, but, you know, whether it's time for yourself or, you know, time in fresh air, time with friends, whatever those may be, I think we really need to make sure we're doing those things for ourselves. So just keep your stress bucket in mind and have a ponder about what helps you open the tap. Having said that, there are a few helpful things that can help us with our mental health and our emotional well-being. So, you know, looking at things like breath work, so even just checking in with yourself over the day. If you're feeling like everything's, with me, it's shoulders go up and I feel like I'm like this. So just, you know, slowing down a little bit, just checking in with yourself, noticing your breathing, slowing down the exhales a little bit. So just even those little moments in the day, just to kind of, rather than being sort of 100 miles an hour all the time or, you know, struggling to get going, just kind of checking in with yourself around your breathing as well can be really helpful. Again, any of the apps like Headspace, Calm, Insight Timer as well as another nice one that's free. So there's lots of kind of guided meditations and things you can use just to, you know, to sort of focus on breathing. Why I'm saying that is because, you know, if we're in that sort of fight or flight mode or we're feeling really low, it's a way of telling our body that we're okay, to sort of calm and settle. You know, if our mind's very busy and our body's sort of following along, you know, we can start to feel quite anxious. So really kind of, checking in with breathing and things like that. Mindfulness, I'm not sure if it's something any of you sort of have done some of it, something that's very popular. But really it just gives you a bit of a chance to have a bit of a space between, you know, your thoughts not always necessarily being helpful. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not so helpful. It can just give you a bit of space to kind of go, okay, what's actually happening right here and now? Am I kind of a bit in my head? And also to have a bit of space from emotions as well. So there's lots and lots of online resources and things. We actually run some mindfulness groups as well through our service. So and that's sort of a 12-week course. So that can be a really helpful thing just to sort of get that bit of space from thoughts and from feelings that might be quite tricky. And it's a practice really. It's not really about, you know, never having negative thoughts because we have lots of those. That's kind of normal. It's just being able to say, okay, that's just a thought and this will pass, or this is a feeling, even though it's not a feeling I like, I don't want to be here. It's kind of, I don't want to be having this feeling. It's having that opportunity to step back and just kind of be in the moment. You know, it's a good practice to try and sort of work on. Writing down difficult thoughts and worries can be a really helpful thing. And the whole gratitude journaling is something that can be really helpful as well. It's something I've gone back to recently, actually, with sort of difficult times at home. I'm sort of sitting down and thinking, okay, what's been good today. You know, there have been some good things in amongst all the tricky things, and it's just helping your brain to kind of focus on that, because we're geared to kind of survive, and we're geared to look for the negative things in the threats, because that's how we're all still here, ladies, and everyone else got eaten by the saber-toothed tigers, you know what I mean? So, you know, that's part of the legacy that you have, so you have to sort of work a bit harder to find the positives. Just taking a pause, checking in with yourself, slowing down. Where is my body feeling tense? You know, just giving yourself that little bit of space. Self-compassion. If we're feeling really anxious or we're feeling really low, sometimes we can really be pretty horrible to ourselves. So just, you know, have a listen to how you relate to yourself, and just, if you can, give yourself a bit of kindness. You know, this is a moment where I'm struggling. This is really hard. What do I need right now? What would be helpful to me? So just trying to relate to your thoughts or your feelings, your experiences in a way that, you know, what would you say to a friend in this situation if they were really struggling? So really trying to give a bit of that kindness that I'm sure everyone is fantastic at giving to other people. Being able to kind of send that inwards a little bit can be a really good thing. Connecting with your values and your purpose, like what's meaningful to me, what's important to me, what do I want to spend my time doing? You know, when life is really busy, we can get a bit sucked into the to-do list. So, you know, just kind of taking some time to reconnect with that. And playing, you know, having some fun. I don't think we do enough of that as adults. I think we need to take a note out of the kids' book sometimes. And then obviously there's talking therapies. I know I've chatted to some people today, so through the Psychological Wellbeing Service, you can access one-to-one cognitive behaviour therapy, other types of therapy. We run groups and things as well. So it's short term, it's time limited, but it can be a really helpful thing if you just need a bit of space. You need a bit of time to kind of work through some things, think about some different ways of doing things. You know, that can be really, really helpful. And then I think we've just got, and you'll probably be able to access, people can access the slides, there's just some ideas there of things you can look at, some other options around talking therapies as well, and some great podcasts around sort of midlife stuff. I don't know if anyone's come across, this is my personal, this is not like an NHS recommendation, but good podcast, lots of fantastic midlife women on there, and they talk a lot about menopause, perimenopause, and just that kind of this time of life experience. So the self-compassion stuff is one of my passions, so, you know, have a look at some of those people's work as well. There's a lot of nice ideas around how can I just be my own best friend a bit more, how can I relate to myself in a more positive way that, you know, can kind of get me through the day. So how am I doing? Oh, bang on. Bang on. Yeah, there we go. Whistle stop. Oh, thank you. You're welcome.